I will formally open this year's Youth Voice Census 2025 key findings. I am Lauren Mistry. I'm the Deputy CEO at Youth Employment UK, and for the last 8 years, I've had the absolute privilege of leading and launching the Youth Voice Census. It is not a one-woman show. It's not a one-woman effort. The team at Youth Employment UK have really pulled together to make the Youth Voice Census what it is, a valuable resource for those in the sector, employers, and government to really take and lead forward with the findings. The Youth Voice Census is only made possible by the small but mighty team at Youth Employment UK, but also through the generous sponsorship of Voice Census sponsors. This year, we've worked with Barclays Life Skills, BACP, the Edge Foundation, and Haven as our key sponsors of the Youth Voice Census. And we've also been working regionally with Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority, Greater Manchester Combined Authority, West Midlands Combined Authority, and the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. What will happen throughout the next 3 months as these main census findings land is that we will be in those regions, understanding, working through the data set that we've been able to ask at a postcode level to ensure that we are really understanding some of the issues within those areas. The Youth Voice Census to us is one of the most powerful tools that we can have to understand nationally what the issues are and how the systems are or aren't working for young people. But actually, what we can see in this year's data set is how local initiatives, local change is taking place. For both Greater Manchester and the West Midlands Combined Authority, this is their second year supporting the Youth Voice Census, and we are already seeing how what the mayoral priorities are changing within those regions. In the West Midlands, we're really excited to see how in-person careers support is changing how young people look and explore work and think about work differently. And in Greater Manchester, we're really excited to see how mayoral initiatives around safety and transport are changing how young people feel as they travel in and around that region too. It isn't perfect everywhere. There's a lot of work to do. We'll explore it today. But I do want to just take a moment to thank those who enable us to give this gift to the sector and to industry to ensure that we continue to learn more from young people. There are some small housekeeping things to go through just as we move forward. We will be opening a Q&A session later. Do put your questions that you have for us in the chat. You can keep your camera on throughout the session, but as I've mentioned already to those who joined early, we will be recording this session. It will be national available. You do have to smile as this goes out. The recording to this session will be made available, as will the slides. The Youth Voice Census is live. There will already, I'm sure, be a link in the chat, but don't get too distracted by it yet. There is a lot to discuss and explore as we move forward into the census. As I've alluded to, for the past 8 years, it's been a real privilege to work across the Youth Voice Census. For the 8th year in a row, young people have shown up to share their voice. The Youth Voice Census, to those that know it and know it well, is a survey designed with young people at its very heart. It isn't a survey put out across a large national polling organisation. It is designed with young people, for young people, and it really is in its brilliance the story behind some of those big polling numbers, the story behind the big metrics that we might see in here, and the story behind some of the big headlines you'll hear about young people too, no doubt. This year, 8,278 11 to 30-year-olds completed the Youth Voice Census with us. In addition, we ran in-person local sessions with young people. So what we'll talk through today are the interweaving stories of 8,350 young people from across the UK. It is a real moment for us to really celebrate that fact. It's really humbling that young people come and share their stories with us. The Youth Voice Census is 324 questions in its entirety. No young person completes all 324 questions. In reality, they answer between 40 and 50. But when you think about the narratives you've heard about young people across the last year, I can imagine you're all surprised that actually they do care. They are interested. They're really committed to sharing how their experiences are kind of challenging them, and they'll share what's really brilliant about their life and what they'd like to see more of too. The census was open for data collection between the 31st of March and the 7th of July. So what's really important when we capture the Youth Voice Census is it's their story from the 12 months leading up to their completion, and it's their excitement for the 12 months ahead. So we are talking about this data set. It is what they can recall and remember and how they felt about what they have experienced in the 12 months leading up to it. And it also captures some of the excitement. We hear a lot today from the stats and the findings about how difficult some of these challenges are for young people. But actually, there are brilliant moments that we get to hear from young people too. The trust that we've built up through the Youth Voice Census comes from 10 years of working across the space. For those who don't know Youth Employment UK and for who this is the first time you are here to hear the Youth Voice Census findings, you are so hugely welcome today. We have built at Youth Employment UK a national body for youth employment, a place and a space where young people feel safe to share their experiences, a membership body of employers who are really committed to understanding what young people tell them and making work and opportunities better for them. And we work collaboratively and collegiately, both across the sector and wide sector that it now is. Youth employment is all the more challenging. We are interwoven into so many different aspects of young people's life, impact them finding a job in 2025. As we look and explore those struggles and those moments of brilliance, we really do share all of those moments together. So all of you are welcome, all of you. I really am humbled by you showing up today and the fact that young people have shown up too. So what did the Youth Voice Census tell us in 2025? It tells us that life is so much more challenging and complicated for young people. I'm sorry for those who thought they were going to show up and hear that actually there is one magic answer and we can fix all of this overnight by just doing one thing. The Youth Voice Census this year gives us moments to pause and reflect on just how complicated life is becoming for young people. The systems and the services that were designed many years ago that are or aren't working for them, how national policy is trickling through locally and what that really means. Some of the findings in the census today will appear at first glance to be contradictory. Young people tell us they are more connected than before digitally, but they also tell us that actually their real in-person connections aren't there. Yes, they have access to digital world and device. They're spending 3 to 6 hours every single evening as they come home from school or work online on social media, but they don't feel more social. They don't feel more connected to people. They tell us of a kind of a world of opportunity that is shared with them. They tell us of these moments where they are told to be ambitious, but actually they're quite anxious about that. They can't see that. They don't quite know what we mean when we're telling them to be filled with opportunity and aspiration, because locally their lives don't feel that way. And they are held back by systems that don't work for them. We do see improvements this year, but actually the rate at which the challenge young people are facing is escalating. The services and systems can't keep up. It's not the fault of every service and system, but it is a solution we have to come to together to make it work. When we explore the Youth Voice Census this year, we know how challenging the last year has been. There is no average year anymore for the Youth Voice Census. We have been looking since 2020. We've been looking since the impact of COVID-19 has really been upon us. We've been looking to get back to something, and that something doesn't exist. Whilst COVID-19 isn't the biggest issue young people are facing, there hasn't been a year since, certainly from young people's perspective, that a challenge, a crisis, or a series of crises have impacted young people. They are political, they are economic, they are kind of widespread kind of media narrative around how young people really feel their life is going to be kind of befallen to them. When we think about what the issues are for young people, for all young people this year, however you cut the demographics, crime and violence is the biggest issue that they feel impacts the country, closely followed by the issues they think the economy will hold and discrimination. When we ask young people about their local areas, crime and violence again is a big worry. Fears for their safety and fears that there aren't any job for them come high. When we're asking young people about what they worry about and what the challenges are within their local area, it's those hyperlocal issues. It is knife crime, it is street safety, it is drug taking on streets. When we think from young people and we are hearing what they feel the big issues are, we really will come back to this at Youth Employment UK as we explore more. The summer, as it has done for the last 2 or 3 years, has incited and involved a lot of discussion around what's happening in this country, who it's safe for and who it isn't. The Youth Voice Census closed before lots of this narrative has really taken hold this year. We do see it within free text commentary, but as we move that conversation forward, it's a conversation we'll be having with our youth ambassadors, we'll be having in the regions that we visit, and really understanding what this means for young people. Young people did tell us this year that they are twice as concerned about immigration in their local areas than they did before. That jump is from 6% to 11%. But actually, the bigger jump is in the fears young people have around discrimination, particularly from our young women and our Black respondents in the Youth Voice Census too. So it's an issue that we might not cover in a way that you might have been expecting today. It is within the census. You can read it in the full report. We can start to understand. But actually, what the Youth Voice Census isn't responding to that issue as we see it today, as we have seen over the weekend, and things escalate. So it wouldn't be fair for us to explore it in more detail without more voices from young people supporting it. And we are, though, exploring what we can talk about and what we can see in the Youth Voice Census, which speaks very much to this issue. Having followed young people's journeys for the last 8 years, you can really see how the waves of change and challenge have impacted how young people feel. Every single year, we've seen anxiety rise for young people. I have talked at length about growing disengagement, growing disconnect, and the fight for competition young people are facing. They do believe that other people are getting more than them. This year, we see the evolution take a slightly different step. Every year in the Youth Voice Census since 2020, we've seen a really fair split between those who strongly agree and those who disagree. It's like a Brexit vote every time. 48% might agree or strongly agree, and 52% might strongly disagree and disagree. This year, we've seen the polarization of those numbers. Young people are now more vehemently strongly agreeing or strongly disagreeing against the big issues we ask them about: their safety, their futures, how they feel as they travel into school, how they feel about work, and how they feel about all of the big issues, their well-being, anxiety in and around them. We are seeing less agree and disagree, but we are seeing this group of young people combine within the middle. What first looks like neutrality, actually, when you do explore those numbers in the Youth Voice Census, shows us something slightly different. That group of young people are actively stepping back and stepping away. They don't feel part of those conversations about their safety and their future. They are what you'll see within the Youth Voice Census, very meh. They just don't feel part of that conversation. They're a group of people stuck between two extremes. They don't feel one way or the other, and not because they are neutral, but actually because they don't feel like those moments, those conversations, and those questions are for them. And those questions absolutely are. Those questions are about their future, about their safety, about how they feel in those moments. That group is really worrying. That is a group that feel that they are not advantaged enough and not yet disadvantaged enough to be engaging in a debate and conversation about their futures. That group are harder to reach. They aren't shouting loudly about issues in and around them. They might pop their head out of kind of discussions to look for a job if they feel something is good for them, but actually they become harder and harder to reach. We have programs, we know how to speak to extremes, but what we see is a group of young people who perhaps have one or two challenges getting into work that just feel like they aren't part of what's going to move forward for them. And then we see those actively disengaging too. That doesn't mean that this year's Youth Voice Census doesn't show us disparity. It absolutely does. In the Youth Voice Census this year, those who are disadvantaged are most likely free school meal students currently, or who were. Your free school meal status follows you throughout the Youth Voice Census up to 30, which is where we cut the numbers, up to 30 years old. Your confidence about yourself and your future, whether you're in work or not, will continuously be between 8 and 10 percentage points less than if you had not received free school meal students as a 14-year-old. That disparity is really clearly seen for young people with additional needs across pretty much every aspect we test for in the census. When we explore factors around safety and discrimination, our young women and our Black respondents are typically those that feel the disparity the hardest. And then when we look at anxiety and we look at connections to people, our white respondents and our boys, and in particular our white boys, are feeling both most anxious and most happy, which is a worrying sign. And those kind of white boys are the least likely to feel they have someone to talk to, a connection, a person that they can reach. That neutrality is rising, not in a positive way. Our extremes are increasing, and you can see how some of those narratives we were just talking about will play out across the next 12 months, or have the danger to play out across the next 12 months if we don't step up to do more about the opportunities, both in our local areas and nationally too. Well-being is one of those challenges that we have seen, and again, at first glance, appears contradictory to as we explore what the data set really tells us. We see this year that young people's overall life satisfaction, their overall happiness scores have increased. They've increased from the bottom into the middle, and that is really brilliant to see. We do, though, see anxiety continuing to increase. So we are seeing those young people feeling more anxious, but actually their life satisfaction and what they think life should be includes that anxiousness now. So whilst it's improving, kind of their happiness isn't getting better, but the young people are learning to live with a state of anxiety and how that will then impact their life. And we continue to see how those extremes in young people play out. Still, 1 in 10 young people report the maximum level of anxiety within there. And we also see the polarization of young men too. For the very first time in the Youth Voice Census, young men were both the most likely to score themselves as the highest rate of anxiety and the least. Young men aren't all one homogenous group, but we can really start to see this information play out. It's really concerning when we then think, as we move through the census, what that is going to mean to those groups as we try and engage them into work, into good opportunities in the future. We do see this year that access to support has improved. Access to mental health support has risen by 10 percentage points in the last year. That is a brilliant increase. It is amazing. We also see access to physical health support increase too, and increase to those who need it, those with additional needs and those with disabilities. Again, that is brilliant to see. But the rate at which young people are telling us they have anxiety is rising, and the scale of the problem continues to rise too. Over half of young people in education report disruption to their education this year because of illness and mental health, because also of poor behaviour in the classroom. And for 13% of those in the Voice Census this year, the reasons they weren't coming to school, the reasons they had missed days in education, was because of a lack of sheer motivation to go. Young people are feeling the sense of kind of mental health and mental illness really acutely within our education environments. There are some springs of moments of connections we will see as we move on to the next findings, how education and people feel a place that more young people can access and go to this year, but the rate of the problem is ever increasing at a rate that we are going to have to do more to offer support in and around. For those in work, that disruption is equally as visible. Mental health and illness, again, the biggest factors of disruption for young people in work this year. Also personal issues, and personal issues around caring for family members. They are most likely to affect those with additional needs, young carers, and those from a free school meal background. Those young workers are missing days within education to support family, and they just don't feel able to communicate that problem to employers. They are then feeling in kind of precarious situations within their own workplace because they just don't feel ready to have a conversation about what's really happening at home. They aren't prepared enough, or they don't feel supported enough to have that conversation in their workplace. Around 1 in 5 young people moved 5 days of work or more in the 12 months leading up to completing the census. And 22% of young people in education had missed 10 days or more of education. Again, the majority of it because of their ill health, the majority of disruption faced in those moments because of wellbeing, keeping them out of the classroom. But we do have to step in and step up to ensure there are places and spaces these young people can get the support that they need. We are pleased to see then that young people this year feel more supported as they start their secondary school and college environments. There's a real moment in this year's Youth Voice Census that we are seeing sixth forms and colleges really step up and engage young people in a way that they haven't reported being engaged before. Those young people are getting more than they have in previous years. We can all argue it's not enough. There is still plenty more to do and plenty to catch up on, but actually, and people are responding to that. When we look around asking young people if they have access to good quality education opportunities where they live, 62% says yes. When we ask young people if they have quality work opportunities where we live, that number more than halves. Actually, education is a place and space this year that young people are valuing more than they have before. Since COVID-19, we have seen a decline in the number of young people who were ready and willing to go to teachers and careers advisors for help and support around careers and employability. This year, that's shifting and that's changing. 4 in 10 young people this year are likely to not just go to teachers, but rate them as useful and a useful person to go to in their learning environments too. This is how we start to learn and understand more about the young people in our learning environments. It's a real moment of success in those places. We see then that whilst school is perhaps a better place to be, despite rising ill health, careers advice and careers support and work experience continues to decline for young people. And it is declining more this year for our secondary school students. Access to face-to-face sessions, careers lessons, and employer visits. In fact, pretty much every aspect we ask young people about careers engagements they should have has declined on our 2024 figures. The 3 on screen that you'll see now are the most popular. So a third of young people had face-to-face careers advice, a third had careers lessons, and 23% had an employer visit. Only 1 in 5 young people saw an employer within their classroom or their learning environment in the last year. They aren't engaging with the workplace at a rate that is going to prepare, excite, and motivate them into work. Work experience is also declining for young people. Just 26% of all young people in education, that is from 11 to 30, whether they are in secondary schools, PRUs and AP provision, whether they are in our sixth forms, our colleges or university, just 26% had access to work experience in the last 12 months. And 74% tell us that work experience is really valuable. It is what helps them understand work, and not enough of them are getting it. Alongside that, other places where young people might grow skills, be inspired and be motivated also continue to decline. Young people are working less. There are less part-time jobs available. Young people are less likely to be studying alongside work too. Sometimes that is because local access to work for young people is harder to reach, but actually for a lot of young people, they are getting by in the moment they are. They are giving all they can to get through the education system that they are currently in. They are bombarded with stories of a hustle culture and needing to do absolutely everything, and it is not something they feel they can live up to. Other places and spaces where young people might grow their skills also decline. It is really saddening to see the rate at which young people are not engaging in extracurricular activities in the last 12 months and the continued decline we've seen for the last 3 years in young people accessing social action and volunteering opportunities. For around a third of these young people, there are issues with access. There are location, transport, financial issues that keep them from being able to explore their skills, make new friends, work, and kind of meet other people. Some of those factors continue to keep young people out. But for 40% of those people, they indicate they had no barriers to engaging with extracurricular opportunities, volunteering, or social action. They simply had not. So a third shared that they did nothing outside of going to school, college, whatever their learning environment was in. So a third of young people did nothing outside of education, no extracurricular, digital art, sports, media, anything, volunteering or social action points. They are the places and spaces that young people get to integrate with other groups. They get to learn so much more about themselves and other groups of people. And it is what we have looked for as employers across the years. One of the things that we try to engage with them, the very old 20-year-old adage, at least, about young people having leadership skills if they played in sport, however true or not it is, actually it will no longer be something young people can talk about on their CVs, and it prepares them less for being able to work in what will be vibrant, busy, really diverse workplaces in the future. For young people, then, where does that leave them in terms of growing their skills, thinking about work and what employers might want? We see a growth in young people's confidence in their teamwork skills and their creativity this year. They feel more resilient in some of what we'll call soft skills for a second. I'm sure Skills Builder will come in and it'll be one of their questions. But as we move this forward and think about those core and applied skills, they continue to decline for young people. So when we ask young people what skills they feel confident in, they are more confident in some of those communication skills, in teamwork and creativity. When we ask them the skills employers are looking for, or they think employers are looking for, the public speaking, the leadership that young people rightly or wrongly think every employer is asking them for, they are declining. The rate in which young people are confident in those skills are declining, whilst young people's confidence that that's what employers will be asking for increases. What is really worrying about the data set this year is the rate in which young people are losing their confidence in their literacy, numeracy, and digital skills this year, and the rate in which they think that employers are decreasing the value of those. So less young people think employers are looking for literacy, numeracy, and digital skills this year. Only around 40% of young people think that employers are looking for those skills from them, and only around kind of 40 to 50% think they have those skills anyway. We know how important literacy and numeracy is for young people. For those who are from free school meal backgrounds and for those who have additional needs, they sit 10 percentage points back in terms of the confidence they have in those skills too. It is what is keeping young people out of work, out of classrooms, able to progress in the future. We see young people this year more confident than in preparing for a CV, preparing an interview, going through an assessment centre. The census is full of contradictions in that way. We may perhaps link it to the only careers advice that some young people had is a careers lesson. So young people do feel like they are being taught how to write a CV. They do feel like there is support and access in terms of how to prepare for an interview, but they don't feel like they are ready, able, and qualified to apply for these jobs. There continues to be a mismatch between what we are telling young people, what we are preparing for, and then what they see in the world around them as they start to apply for work. 4 in 10 young people don't think they have the right qualifications to get a job. Less than half think they have the right skills. And again, less than half think they have the right work experience to get a job too. It's work experience, travel and location, and the right skills that young people believe are their biggest barriers to being able to access work. Whilst half think they know the skills employers are looking for, when we start to explore and look at age and stage within this data, it's where we see the real disparity. For neat young people, just 26% think they know what employers are looking for. That's whether those young people are looking for work or they're not looking for work. They're looking for opportunities or they're not. They don't believe it. We see really clearly in the census that when young people hit 19, it's when they are and could and should be looking at work as their biggest kind of next step. Actually, it's where their confidence falls off a cliff. You can see it in the data. Young people, whilst they're in education, whilst they have support, whilst they have people around them, whilst they have that network, are more confident that they'll be able to move into work as soon as they are looking, or as soon as they hit 19 and work is one of the options for them. Their confidence falls off a cliff. They no longer believe that something is happening as young people apply for work. They're kind of getting no answers, getting no responses, and getting no feedback. They just don't believe that what they were told or what they're being prepared for is really what employers need and are looking for. That leaves then just 25% of young people believing that employers are supportive of hiring them. That goes down every year when we run this data across the Youth Voice Census. And I know for those who are offering opportunities, for employers who have been working really hard to promote opportunities to fill skills gaps within their organisation, that is a continued frustration. But we have to do more to support the application processes. We have to be really honest about what our working environments are like, and we have to step up with pre and post support in and around application processes to really support young people into understanding that work, and support employers too to understand where they're going wrong with their recruitment processes. The future of work for young people feels conflicted too. Every year in the Youth Voice Census, we see our happiest lot are those who have a place and a space to be. They're in education and they're in work. Always really thrilled to be able to share that those young people who are in work are typically the happiest of people within the Youth Voice Census. They feel connected to something, they have a purpose. They are hopefully, if they are in good work, getting help and support. We have, though, for the last 2 years, seen a decline in that happiness. Young people in work are still the happiest of the lot. Work is a good place for young people to be when it is good work, when it is quality work. But we continue to see how stress and workload are increasing for young people. And it's a real friction and a real worry point of how they might fall out of the workplace in the coming year ahead. So 42% of young people have had their stress increased in their job in the past year. 47% say their workload has increased. Very minor percentage, perhaps 26% of young people have had any additional training in the last year. There isn't support around training, development, and opportunities. Young people aren't seeing their rates of pay, promotion, or training and development increase at the rate they believe their workload and kind of the pressures around them are increasing too. We see just under half of young people contacted outside of their working hours at least some of the time. Confidence for young people in work to challenge that is also low. 63% don't feel able to ask for a pay rise, and 60% don't feel able to ask for promotion. We see disparity here too. Free school meal backgrounds, young women, Black respondents, again, are the least likely to feel that they are able to ask those questions around them. For the most part, and people are really excited about their futures. When they are in education, we are asking them about the future of work. They name at length sectors and industries they want to work in, from creative to digital, health and social, construction, industrial strategy areas that young people do want to work in. We do have these moments where we are able to connect and inspire young people into work. The majority of them are using AI to explore the world in and around them. A lot of them are using it for their homework. That's a discussion for another day. But actually, there are places and spaces we are able to explore and excite young people about what the world of work will be. But as I said, something happens then as young people are looking for it. Neat young people in particular are the cohort we are most worried about as we explore this data set. They are the least confident overall. Fewer than 1 in 3 feel confident that they can find a good local job where they live. They are really worried about what their future is going to hold. When we ask them about AI, when we ask them about the future, when we ask them about opportunities, their response is most often, I just need an opportunity. I'm not thinking about who's taking my job in the future and what AI is going to do for me. I need something right now, and I can't have any more discussions than that. For young people, what was interesting this year too is that fair pay continues to be their top demand and priority. Fair pay, good training and development, and good reputation is what is really driving young people to apply for work. 71% want flexible hours. They want to be able to travel at a time where it is less expensive, less busy for them to be able to access work. They sometimes need to be able to pick their little brothers and sisters up from school, to care for their dad, to be able to access health and kind of physical opportunities around being able to kind of develop themselves in and around that work time. Just 36% prioritise home working, but it is flexible working that's most important, being able to have some autonomy in and around being able to deliver the work that they know they should be able to do in hours that suit their life, particularly for young people who don't feel prepared to have a conversation with the employers in and around them. So for young people this year, it's really, it does feel for them a moment of kind of contradiction, of frustration in and around systems. And for the majority of young people, conversations they aren't feeling prepared to have around what work should look like and what work should be. It is extreme in terms of how we see young people respond to the challenges in and around them. We have a responsibility to create and provide not just more opportunities, but more moments of unity for those young people too. We have to show young people that there are quality opportunities for them to work, but that there are quality places for them in and around their local areas too. Their access to local amenities continues to decline. Access to sports, access to social action, access to extracurricular. We have to provide a wave of opportunities if young people are going to see what's available for them and to them. We have to ensure that those who face the most disparity are able to access that work. But we have to remember that group in the middle too. I said it yesterday as we launched this in Parliament. We have to say this really loudly for those people at the back, but we have to say it even louder for those people in the middle. They are a real worry in terms of what we'll be reporting in the year ahead. I have shared with you what feels like a raft of issues and challenges. I hope you feel as motivated as we do to tackle them. I am going to hand over to our CEO, Laura Jane Rawlings, to walk through the recommendations. We don't just have problems, we do have recommendations, we do have solutions too. And this will be your 10-minute warning that we will open for questions and conversation after.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, Lauren. And there's a rousing round of applause in the room that I'm sitting in today for Laura Mystery, because she really has, with the team behind her, taken so much care, as she always does, to ensure that we have really listened and heard to the 8,000 plus young people who've taken part in the census this year. So a huge, huge thanks to Lauren and our team. I strangely am up in Sunderland right now, not sitting behind Lauren in the office, missing her dearly today. But I'm in Sunderland shortly to address the URSA Youth Employment Conference, which is really fitting today because I'll be going next in presenting our 2025 findings to a room full of people that want to bring about change. And actually, not only are we in Sunderland and North East, which has huge disparities, as we know, regionally for many, many young people, I'm also sitting in a youth zone that has been sponsored and supported by partnerships right across government, the private sector, and those in policy. I know we've got quite a few DWP colleagues in the room, and the creation of the youth hubs back in 2020 was one of our recommendations as part of our work with the Youth Employment Group, and it's really quite exciting for me to actually be sharing further recommendations from this year's data set to you based in a youth zone, which has come out of the back of a lot of work that Youth Employment UK and our partners do on trying to tackle and support the issues around youth unemployment. So I'll apologise now for any background noise, because there are young people moving in and around this space around us who are fascinated by what's going on in this little cubby hole they've put me in for this hour slot. So as Lauren says, we've heard a lot, we know a lot. Actually, it's a really sobering moment for us to know that we now have 8 years of really substantial, high quality data and insight from young people right across the UK. We started gathering this data in 2019, so pre-COVID, and we've been able to measure, track and follow young people and their experiences over these last 8 years with quite a comprehensive and brilliantly crafted data report. So for those of you that are new to this, there are 7 other reports that are available on the website. And of course, as Lauren says, this report has gone live during our session today. Youth Employment UK is the national body for youth employment. Since inception back in 2012, has worked with young people, it's worked with employers, and it's worked with the system. And when I think about the system, I'm thinking about everybody else. I'm thinking about our schools, our colleges, our alternate provision, our hospital schools, the youth clubs, the youth sector, the services that are in and around our young people, the mental health, the housing, and wider systems like government nationally and locally. We have a real collaborative approach to the work that we have done. No one organisation is ever solving youth unemployment, but for 12 years we've been in it. We have a leadership team with lived experience, which I think makes us the most obsessed about what we hear from young people and how authentically we can represent their views through our data and through our storytelling. Over the last 9 years, we've had the privilege of being the secretariat to the all-party parliamentary group influencing government policy through that APPG lens, bringing MPs from cross parties who have a real interest in youth employment and the issues around our young people. And yesterday we had a number of those MPs and partners in the room in Parliament. We also, through the work that we have done, which I'm so proud of with the Youth Employment Group, a coalition of partners including Youth Futures Foundation, Learning and Work, Impetus, the Institute of Employment Studies and the King's Trust, formerly Prince's Trust, have been working together in a collaboration since 2020, since the onslaught of the pandemic and the impact that had on our young people, to try and drive policy intervention and recommendations to government. In 2022, the Youth Employment Group wrote a paper called A Young Person's Guarantee, and we were delighted when the Labour government put a youth guarantee, taking some of the recommendations from the Youth Employment Group into their manifesto as they headed into fighting to take over the EP and DfE to try and bring to life what that youth guarantee looks like. It's been a really interesting journey. I'm also trailblazers in how they are thinking about delivering that youth guarantee at a local level. So we've done a lot already, and I think that's just a testament to the will and to the energy of the team that we have at Youth Employment UK, but also to our supporters and partners, the members and the patrons and the funders that have been in and around us who make this work possible. And when we were putting together this year's recommendations, what we wanted to do was to start to really coalesce around the things that we have known for the last 12 years, the things that we have seen, things that we've seen that work, the evidence of ours, but also other organisations and our partners, and really fundamentally put together what we believe now is possibly the keys to the castle, the keys to solving youth unemployment in a set of 5 recommendations, which I'm really, really proud to be sharing with you today. So I'm just going to sort of walk through them in highlights, but you'll be able to read them in full on the Youth Employment UK website and through the full report that's there for you. But to say this, that we will be taking these 5 recommendations with our partners and friends and really trying to see how we can bring them into fruition, because this is where we believe we can make the biggest difference to the most amount of young people. And quite frankly, when we founded back in 2012 as a not-for-profit at my kitchen table in Corby, I never thought we'd be in this position 12 years later in terms of the impact that we've had and the size of the organisation that we are. But also 12 years ago, I thought solving youth unemployment was quite possible. And now actually it's going to take the biggest amount, because the last 12 years have created the most complicated landscape, and our young people have really been the football here in amongst policy change, economic change and turbulence across the world, as Lauren alluded to. There were 1 million neat young people back in 2012, and that means 1 million young people were not in education, employment or training, and there are nearly today 1 million neat young people. We have seen some change in the last 12 years, but certainly not enough. So to canter then through these recommendations so we can open up to some of your questions. The first and one of the most important, I think, systemic changes we need to see is that we need to secure a young person's entitlement for all of our young people, those aged 11 to 18. I think there's been a lot of conversation in the last 12 years about how fit for purpose the education system is or isn't for young people. We know the massive inequality, social, economic inequality that exists, that means some young people just have no access to enrichment alter opportunities in the places that they live. And we need to secure equality across a system that every young person has access to, which of course there is our education system. We spent a lot of time over the last couple of years looking at post-16 education reform, because there's a lot happening at the governmental level. And we designed with our partners what we think a young person's entitlement would look at and look like. And so we're now proposing, and it feels like the right time and moment where we are in the political cycle to really push this forward. A young person's entitlement would be a national framework that could be delivered locally by schools, colleges, and the local authorities and combined authorities, but would essentially ensure that every young person had access to core skills, the literacy, the numeracy, the digital, the oracy, and the citizenship that they need to thrive. That they'd have access to broad pathways, whether that's academic or technical, but pathways that were available to them based on who they are and not based on what the system wants to achieve. We need good quality qualifications and opportunities for every learner at every stage, and particularly for those who have special education needs and have additional barriers to the kind of standard attainment levels that we have as a one-size-fits-all system. We need to ensure through a young person's entitlement that every young person has access to enrichment and well-being opportunities, and of course careers and work experiences embedded. And it feels like we're not very far from kind of being able to design a system for all young people to really thrive in education if we were to bring these things together. Then we move on to how we support employers. Actually, we can prepare our young people to be completely employable if there was such a thing. I certainly was not in. I'm still learning today, actually, how to be employable in the role that I have. But if we, even if we could make that possible for all young people, unless there are jobs for them, unless there are employers willing to hire them, we will still have a youth unemployment problem. So we need to help employers. We recently launched a report through the APPG on how we can support employers, particularly SMEs, to hire and support our young people. And we need to accelerate the recommendations within that report, creating some flexibility, introducing to employers some incentives, and ensuring that it's simple for them to offer the support and the opportunities that is within their gift to young people. Can I have the next slide, please, Laura? Thank you. Moving on to our third recommendation, really within Million Neat Young People, we absolutely know they're falling through the gap. As we've heard from this year's Youth Voice Census, our neat young people are the least confident. They're the least confident in their skills. They're the least confident that they're going to find opportunity. And actually, the minute you step out of education, there really is no career support. There really is no pastoral support, particularly if you struggle to access and find that or connect to that where you live. And so we are making a very strong recommendation that the Youth Employment UK platform that has been serving 4 million young people nationally, that provides wellbeing, advice, inspiration, career support, labour market information and access to opportunities, is put centre as a one-stop digital hub for young people. Alongside that, we know that actually young people need physical spaces and they need the physical support the most. Youth hubs are proving to be something that works for our young people. I'm sitting in one, I can see young people accessing support services right in front of my eyes right now in real time. And so I couldn't be more inspired that we encourage and find a way to ensure that there is a youth hub accessible to all of our young people wherever they are. And we also want to do better around our diagnostics. Government have been working on their recommendations of the risk of NEET indicators and how local authorities can measure and track those young people at risk of NEET. There are broader tools that could be incorporated into that risk of NEET data to ensure that tracking and supporting young people and giving them tailored support based on who they are and where they are on their journey to work could be much more effective. So we're going to be looking to trial some of that thinking later on this year. The youth guarantee I've mentioned is something that we're really happy to see come to fruition. There's some really excellent practice, particularly across the combined authorities that we've been working with. But there are still too many areas that don't sit within a combined authority and won't benefit from the youth guarantee for some time yet to come. So we're actually looking at how we can help and government think about how they can roll out some of the youth guarantee systemic approaches at a national scale much quicker than perhaps is currently timetabled. I live in a non-combined authority area, and we have a neat problem, and we need to ensure that our local authority and the people that are supporting young people across Northamptonshire have the same access to support and intelligence as those in the combined authorities and those with the youth guarantee. So we're going to be working with government on how we can get to that national rollout quicker. And then, as we've heard a lot of, and it's something that is one of the biggest challenges for young people, is their lack of belief. You can't move very often for news items that start with Gen Z and what they want and what they don't want and about their behaviours. This is not good enough. We, as the adults in the system around our young people, need to stop putting them down and start putting them first. And we have to start seeing them as individuals who need our support and need us to champion them. And so we're calling on all of us to come about a national culture shift. We should not be seeing young people as a deficit, but seeing them as a power to lift our economy, to lift our places, and to bring together the change that they can so readily, and so, as we heard yesterday from youth ambassadors, so eagerly want to see for themselves and their peer group. So they're the big 5 recommendations, and I was saying to Lauren this morning, I've never felt so invigorated. This has been a really difficult year. All of the charity leaders I know have struggled this year. It is a really troubling landscape. The economy is troubling. I absolutely believe we might all be feeling a bit meh from the news and the challenge that exists around us as adults. So never mind how young people are feeling it themselves. But actually, we can't have that as our centre and our base. We have got to step above the meh, and we have got to start really creating opportunity. And that's kind of the energy that I've got going into this next 12 months, where we're going to be putting these recommendations front and centre. And I invite you all to come alongside us with that journey. So, Lauren, I'm gonna hand over there, and let's see if we've got some questions from the audience today.
We do. Your connection is a little bit, when you move, it isn't always there. Stay still. And it might work also too. So just in terms of the questions, I can see one from Mike, who is a big advocate of young person's entitlement. The question is, how confident are you that any funding made available to support will actually get to each and every young person and not soaked up in an overburdened and underfunded education system? I'm going to ask you to answer that bit. I will just lead in with, I think the Youth Voice Census is a really good honesty check for those systems. We shouldn't continue to fund things that aren't properly evaluated, that don't have young people as part of that evaluation. But the Youth Voice Census is the real moment where young people tell us what they really felt they had and what they really needed. And I do think as we start to see that playing out with our regional sponsors and how we are working with so many trailblazers as part of that too, it is an independent honesty check of how young people received it. Doesn't mean we didn't do it, doesn't mean we didn't work hard to try and do something, but actually how it landed, what it did, what it improved. I think the Youth Voice Census does a brilliant job of doing that. Have you got any more you'd say about that, LJ?
Absolutely. I think the funding issue is really interesting. Actually, we spend and waste so much money in and around the system. And when we were starting to mock up the work of the young person's entitlement, and if one of the Youth Employment UK teams can put that report in this chat, I'd be deeply grateful for colleagues to be able to go and take it away and have a look at it as well. When we started to put it together, actually, it didn't feel like a cost burden. What it felt like was a join up of services. DCMS currently working on their national youth strategy. They have put money back into the system for youth hubs and youth clubs. I think we need to just rethink, rather than building brand new spaces, and I worry that we end up just creating new buildings. I think when we were thinking about this entitlement in particular, it's about using our schools, our colleges, our spaces that exist already, bringing things together like the youth strategy, like the work that's going on to create a enrichment curriculum by some of our partner youth organisations, and some of the things that are happening in school in the Department for Education, like the curriculum reform. There's lots moving here. I think it's just about lining them up together and kind of coalescing around one framework that they could all be delivered underneath to ensure that entitlement's there. I'm not averse to a voucher system. And what gets measured gets done also. So actually, you'd have to have an entitlement, Mick, that had some metrics to it that people had to assure they were delivering. So there's the real thinking there. It's not a fully formed policy area yet, but it's something that we want to do more on. So let us know what you think when you've had a read.
Fab. And in terms of just as we finish on that and move to the next question, I think it will link us quite nicely, is that in all of my excitement today, I didn't mention that actually the only local amenity that had increased this year for young people was youth clubs. Actually, there aren't enough. There is still plenty of work to do, but when we spread good messages, young people hear it and they start to see and access it too. Sometimes it's not always that it isn't available, it is that it doesn't feel accessible and available to certain groups of young people too. So there are glimmers of hope as we look at what is coming next. Aldo, Simone has a question about SMEs and funded opportunities. I wondered if that was a moment we could bring in some of the work and activity we were doing with Cambridge and Peterborough Combined Authority around membership and supporting SMEs to take a slightly different approach to hiring young people.
Yeah, of course. So Cambridge and Peterborough is one of the trailblazing areas for the Youth Guarantee. And one of the things that we are trialing, and I say we, I've had the privilege of sitting on the Cambridge and Peterborough Trailblazer guarantee board, and I'm chairing that board, so I'm kind of very closely and keenly watching how we deliver for the youth guarantee in Cambridge and Peterborough. And one of the things we are trialling is employer incentives and bursaries with SMEs in particular. And as part of those trials, those employers who are able to access the bursaries and the support are accessing support. So things like supported internships, which we know work. There's bursaries for those SMEs in and around Cambridge and Peterborough to access that. But alongside the young person comes a support worker who knows that young person and can help with kind of some of the pastoral care. So that's a really interesting model. When we were looking at the APPG inquiry as to how we engage businesses with the youth guarantee, we had a number of submissions from organisations like the Federation of Small Businesses and the CBI, the Confederation of British Industry, making into that inquiry their recommendations about how you engage with businesses and how we help them. Ultimately, businesses are feeling lots of burden from the things I've said in kind of the chat. You know, they are dealing with a challenged economy. They're dealing with constant change currently in terms of what's happening in the Employment Rights Bill, the rise of the National Insurance contributions. It is hard to be a business. We know that. Youth Employment UK is one too. And so we've got to take that burden away as much as we can and help these businesses with simple advice and support, again, in a bit of a one-stop shop area. But we have to also make sure that that quality is there, the insight about how to help those young people and how to ensure that the opportunities are good quality for them. So I think Youth Employment UK has got a real substantive role in that employer place and that quality piece.
Brilliant, thank you. I just want to pick up two questions and then we'll close the session for the day. There is a question around regional reporting and how that might be made available. We are running individualised regional reports for the 4 regions we have talked about in this session. What will follow then will be findings that do cover the key question set and how that is different across the Northeast and Northwest and all of the kind of local areas too. So we will be looking at regional findings and supporting those as they come out as well. And as we think about kind of enrichment and extracurricular activities too, Jenny, I know that's your second question. Schools are stretched. They really are in terms of what they're able to provide and the roles they're undertaking to support young people at the moment. It actually wasn't, though, the biggest factor keeping young people out. So it is interesting when we look at why young people didn't engage. For a lot of that, there is time and interest, but for those who had them available to them, there is still something stopping them going in and around those moments. So there is a lot to explore across those areas, and I know there's a lot as we look at the enrichment framework that's coming out. There's a lot of activity taking place as that moves forward to explore in more detail. We are running slightly over on this session, but I wanted to just take a moment to think about kind of the next steps on your journey too. Whoever you are kind of dialing in and wherever in the country you are listening to us, wherever you are in the country listening to us from today, there is a real moment and a joy at being part of Youth Employment UK's membership offer and being able to explore and look at the brilliant work that we're able to do in more detail. Membership at Youth Employment UK gives you expert insight, benchmarking activities around your organisation, your recognition of commitment, and exclusive events, particularly as we explore the Youth Voice Census in more detail in the months to come. The Youth Voice Census is available for you to download. It is out now. Please, if you haven't, read it already, but read all of it. Don't just read the bit that you think is most interesting to you, because all of it plays a part in young people's journey as they move forward too. Thank you so much for joining and for sharing today. If you didn't get your question answered, please, we'll share with you our kind of messaging places and spaces in the chat. Share them and we'll come back to you post this session. For now, I leave you with the full report. Read it, share it. Young people are really keen that their voices are heard. So let's continue to make it happen. Thank you.